no one else knows yourself, and this is the best segue I could come up with for today. We're going to be interviewing you. That was better than the last one.
I mean, look. Technically, at one point, our go-to segue was penises and stormtroopers. So I feel like we've only gotten better from there.
Yeah, I mean, it could only go up from garbage, I guess.
I know. First of all, that is still. I've been listening to some of the old episodes, and it was the was it the Valentine's Day one? We were going to talk about romances, and we were going over. You were making the threat about nobody better ever send me a dick pic, and then I said, hey, I don't want any dick pics either.
Yeah. Oh god. And then there was the live stream where we literally just ended it on you yelling out
penises, stormtroopers,
and then I cackled like a madman, and then ended the stream.
Oh, and so as long as people want to be, I said I think on one of the other episodes that I had forgotten about the elven scat porn.
Did you find it again?
Yeah, I did. I went back and I found it. It was very short, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It was very brief, but I do remember that.
You try to block it out of your memory, but we remember.
Speaking of old memories. There we go. I just segued again.
I don't know how that one actually figures out into the segue, but okay. I do want to highlight one comment from the last time from Sultan Galib. I don't know how to pronounce that last one. My dog was really into this comment, apparently. But they say, Gil, oh wow, we've been doing it for a year. And then Exalted March, oh yes, perfect time to introduce ourselves. Yes, this is what this is. It's been a year, let's introduce ourselves. All right, well, my friend, so for your interview, I like things being a bit matchy-matchy. So for the most part, these are going to be the same question.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting. That's actually that's not a bad pattern, right? We interviewed you and your experience with Dragon Age. I kind of feel like mine will lean a little more Mass Effect, but also some Dragon Age.
Yeah, and then other Bioware games. Let's just start there. What was the first Bioware game that you played?
So the first Bioware game that I played was actually Knights of the Old Republic. Which makes me sort of like in the middle of the BioWare community. Like there's levels of veteran. There's original trilogy Mass Effect veteran, then there's KOTOR veteran, then there's Neverwinter Nights Baldur's Gate veterans. So I played Baldur's Gate, but I didn't play it when it came out, and it wasn't like a big, part of my RPG past. KOTOR was really the game that made me a huge BioWare fan.
Have you played KOTOR recently?
Yeah, I did. I think we even talked about it. We, at one point, talked about potentially doing an episode looking back on it. And I had actually just recently done a playthrough around, so about a year ago, give or take.
Okay. Because I guess I tried to play it, and I just couldn't get into it. So what do you see in the game, I guess?
It hasn't aged well. And that's definitely, that's not just you. The most recent time I played it, like I said, I played it about a year ago, but maybe a couple of months before that, I tried to start playing it, and for some reason, I couldn't do it. And I got really sad because it was the first time ever where I just felt like the graphics, the UI, the controls, even some of the voice work, although a lot of it is good, some of it's kind of uneven. I was like, oh God, I think this might just be too old for me now. I really don't feel like playing this. And then I'm not sure what happened. I think I just got a craving for classic BioWare games, and I was able to play through it probably for, probably the 10th or more time. If you're in the mood for Star Wars and you're in the mood for a classic BioWare game, it's the perfect thing. I still think that the core storyline is really good. And I still like, the characters, right? I still like Bastila, Karth. I still think that they're, it is that BioWare formula where it's that engaging crew that makes you come back to it.
Okay. So the characters is really what's getting you through there.
Yeah, and then also certain, that old BioWare. You see it in Dragon Age Origins, but just, some of the quest structure, there's more depth to it. I feel like the investigative element in KOTOR is really strong. There's the one pretty famous side quest where, you go back, probably total 6 or 7 times between these two guys trying to figure out who committed a murder. And just, quests like that, I feel like maybe we don't see as much in the current BioWare games. I think that's really appealing about KOTOR.
So I came into BioWare pretty new, and then you've obviously seen the change throughout. What has been, other than like, or maybe it is just that change, but how is old BioWare differing from new BioWare to you?
You know, those Infinity Engine games, right? So you're like Icewind Dale and Baldur's Gate and like the old, the games that are now being sort of homaged by Divinity and Pillars of Eternity, right? Those games. They all had like a certain aesthetic to them. I'm not sure if it was just because they were partially text-based. It felt like the options were infinite. And it doesn't feel quite that way in Dragon Age Origins or in, say, KOTOR 1, but it's closer to that. The variety and the way that the quests can end, the amount of dialogue options. I mean, like, there can be legit 10 or 12 dialogue options sometimes in KOTOR, and some of them might be similar, but it gives you, like, a width to the role-playing that feels really satisfying. And then it's also dealing with... so that's kind of what I think... the main thing has changed. The quality is still there, if not higher, but it's gotten a lot narrower. So less quests, shorter quests with less variety, less dialogue options. All of it's still really good, but it's definitely less as far as the width of it.
Okay. Well, let's transition into Mass Effect. Tell me how you first got into that.
Mass Effect. There is kind of a story behind that, right? So I remember hearing about Mass Effect somewhere around 2005, probably. Mm-hmm. Right, maybe 2004, 2005. And so that at that point, KOTOR 2 had come out. KOTOR was developed by Obsidian, but I loved Knights of the Old Republic 2. And the idea of BioWare making an original science fiction RPG, that was the first tidbit, right? The first rumor was BioWare is working on a new IP, their own original story, science fiction, action role-playing game. And just all of those words together, just I was so ready. Like, I remember the moment reading that story. It was on a site that I ended up writing for a little bit that's now defunct, called PlanetXbox360.com. At least I don't think it's around anymore. And I remember being so excited by that story and just thinking to myself, like, I can't wait. I wanted to put myself in a time machine. I was like Cartman on that episode of South Park when he's waiting for the wheel. Like, I wanted to freeze myself and then just wake up right when it came out. So I was hyped from the very beginning. I remember a little bit of the community backlash. You know, it's not, you know, history kind of repeats itself. It's not very dissimilar from what we're going through now, where there's people saying, you know, BioWare is abandoning Mass Effect in favor of Anthem. Well, back then there were people saying that BioWare was abandoning the Star Wars franchise, Knights of the Old Republic, in favor of this new game, which we would later learn was Mass Effect. And a lot of people didn't like that. You know, there were a lot of people that felt like, you know, we need to get KOTOR 3, which at one point there was a plan for that we never got. So I literally absorbed every single thing, every single rumor, every single piece of news that I could about Mass Effect before the release. Very different, right, than like how you got to come into Dragon Age after it was released, and like you got to experience everything all at once as quickly as you wanted to, as opposed to like 2-3 years of waiting for the first game. You went through
agony, probably.
I mean, like, the last few days were just like, it's like time was going in slow motion. I was, you know, especially because, like, leading up to that point, how old was I? I was probably like 18 when that game came out. So, you know, poor little 18-year-old me, I didn't have a lot going on. It wasn't a whole lot of, like, action going on in my social life at that point. So, you know, I was just, like, so thrilled for Mass Effect. But I will say, and I like to mention this as well, is, like, my first ever, like the first time I ever saw the Mass Effect, you know, universe essentially was not in Mass Effect 1, the game, because they released the prequel novel before the game, which I think a lot of people forget. But Drew Karpyshyn wrote the prequel, who's of course lead writer on Mass Effect 1. He wrote the novel Mass Effect Revelation, which dealt with Captain Anderson's first encounter with Saren, something like 25 years before the events of Mass Effect 1, and kind of sets up their history and sets up Saren as a character. Typically, the novels, at least the Karpyshyn novels, sort of introduced the protagonist, like the novel that takes place between Mass Effect 1 and 2 introduces the Elusive Man, and the prequel novel introduces Saren. That was actually, the first time I was learning about any of the lore. He was describing all of the characters and sort of, what are Turians like and what are Asari like and what are Krogan like. And there's actually a few Batarian characters that actually play pretty large in the plot of that book. And then, of course, we don't see Batarians until the Bring Down the Sky DLC in Mass Effect 1. So that was, I felt like because it's science fiction and because I like reading science fiction, I felt like that was a really great way to handle the series, is you got to sort of read about some of the lore if you chose to before playing the game. And I really wish that they had done that with Mass Effect Andromeda's prequel novel as well. Like it was annoying to me that they released it the same day the game came out, even though it's a prequel, because I was trying to read it, on and off between playing the game.
They did the same thing with the novels in Dragon Age. Like the first two Dragon Age books were released a couple months before the game came out, at least.
Oh, see, that's perfect too. Yeah, I think I didn't. I think I didn't read What Stolen Throne until like afterwards, but
I definitely didn't. I wonder if they're going to do anything like that with Anthem. Like you think you'd be heard about it by now. We know there's comics coming out, but I don't think it's going to be any novels.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably read a novel, although at this point I don't know if the story is going to lend well enough to a novel, but it could. I mean, they have World of Warcraft novels, for Christ's sake.
That's true. They have Minecraft novels. Have you seen those?
No, they don't.
They 100% they do.
Oh no.
There's a couple of them too. I don't. Okay. Anyway. So, you asked me about like my canon Inquisitors and stuff. Do you have any canon Shepherds?
Initially it was just my first one, right? I mean, you kind of mentioned the same thing. Yeah, I would say for a long time it was my first one, and it's actually really kind of interesting, right? So, I did what most people do, or a lot of people do when they play RPGs for a long time, is that I just made the character me, right? Like I did that in Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2 and some other ones for a while, and then I did it for my first playthrough of Mass Effect, and that was the last time I've ever made a character me in a game, ever. Like, I even used to do it in sports games, right? And, like, I would make, like, my little character basically like me. And then, I don't know, I guess I got more interested in the idea of actually creating a character. And especially as a writer, it's more fun for me to come up with a character that's not like me, that makes decisions that I totally would never make. So for a long time, it was that first me character. And then, actually, I feel fairly attached to one of the more recent shepherds that I did. That was just a male shepherd, adept class, who, I mean, it was basically just a perfect playthrough. It's kind of boring to say that this is the one that I feel most attached to, but like after so many runs, it was just like he did everything perfectly. as many people that could survived. Like as many friends and allies as I could have, I had. And so that's probably the one that I consider my canon playthrough now.
Tell me about him.
His name is Arcturus Shepherd, which is a really stupid name. But I have
an Inquisitor named Aurea. Like, come on. We're not having the name Olympics.
The name Olympics. So yeah, Arcturus Shepherd, romanced Ashley, best bros with Garrus. It's kind of stereotypical. He leans up. No, he's not really pro-human. I think he's pretty much in favor of cooperation. He tends to be almost exclusively Paragon, except he's not very fond of politicians. So like people like Udina and some of the council members, those are probably the only times when I take some renegade responses. And so that's become one of my I mean, some of the other ones I think are a little bit more interesting. Like that is one that I felt really attached to. But one of the ones that I always think about and reference, because it totally speaks to the idea of some like a character that would never be me, and it was she was a female shepherd engineer class, but the way that I role played her, she's basically a racist. So she's a xenophobe, because like I always thought it would be interesting to like write when Presley, because the options are there. Like, and when you first start Mass Effect 1 and Presley's just like, yeah, I don't trust Turians. Like you can totally go like, yeah, man, those damn Turians, you can't trust them. Essentially, like it allows you to be really unrefined and unnuanced in that stance. And I'm like, well, wouldn't it be interesting if you had a character that did that, but then learned from their mistakes? It wouldn't be that interesting to just play a xenophobe the entire trilogy, but I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if the character starts off xenophobic and like that permeates into everything? So like she wanted to take Caden and Ashley everywhere because those are the human crew members, et cetera, et cetera. But then the twist that I had was like she basically falls in love with Liara. And so that's the thing that's sort of, and then like that, you wouldn't think that was designed into the dialogue options in all of the trilogy, but if you headcanon that, it feels like some of the dialogue options are almost perfect for that. Like someone who's actually starting to come along and realize that aliens aren't so bad. And then like you end up kind of estranged from Liara anyway in 2 because of Lair of the Shadow Broker. So then if you're romancing Liara, that's a good payoff. And so, I don't know, just like little by little, like eventually she does become friends with Garrus, even though initially she's not. And, there are a few dialogue options where you really get to be pro Cerberus in 2, but then, Cerberus burns you, right? Like you figure out you can't trust Cerberus. You also figure out because of Jack, that's another thing, right? So she's pro-human, so she likes Jack, but then she sees what Cerberus did to Jack. And she's like, oh, well, Cerberus is cruel to everyone, right? So they're doing horrible things to humans, to aliens, to everybody. And so, like, you can actually roleplay pretty effectively the path of someone who sort of has their eyes opened to human extremism, so that by the end of 3, especially when, you're fighting side by side with the Turians on the moons of Palaven, and right after you had left Earth being destroyed, and, like, she kind of starts to notice that everybody's in the fight together against the Reapers, and so she becomes, like, a reformed xenophobic.
Okay. What, so you've, I think last time you mentioned you've played through the trilogy 11 times, if I'm remembering the number correctly?
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of 12 right now.
Congratulations on the dozen, I guess. But, why so many times? I know I'm a hypocrite in saying that, but like, what about these games is like, yeah, I'm going to play through this 12 times and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
I mean, the real question is why don't I have a spreadsheet yet? I mean, that's real.
Hey, I can give you the template.
Yeah, I mean, like, considering that, and like this is so terrible. Like, I was working on spreadsheets literally in my spare time, like not even work related. I was just putting them together for something else that I was doing. The fact that I don't have a Mass Effect spreadsheet at this point is ridiculous. So why do I keep coming back to it? Honestly, initially it was because I wasn't trying different options. Like, I don't think it was because I was trying to get to all the different options at first. I was definitely one of those people, like, who for the first 3 or 4, I was doing a lot of the same things just because, I don't know, at that point, I think it was just more like, I just liked the stories. I was doing small variations, but a lot of the major decisions were the same. It was like watching your favorite movie, a few different times. And then after I got like 3 or 4 under my belt, I was like, yeah, let's kill Morden. let's just see what happens. Let's just kill Rex, or just, you know what? Let's let Ash. Or that's the one moment where, because I never went on YouTube to, and I still don't. I very rarely go on YouTube to watch things that I've never done. Mm-hmm. I still like those moments of surprise when I'm playing to go, holy crap! I never knew that could happen. It probably wasn't until my 5th or 6th playthrough where I was. Either I didn't have the points to take the Renegade Persuade or the Paragon Persuade, or I was actually trying a playthrough where I was trying to avoid using those, because you always succeed basically if you use those. And so the one time when I realized that Ashley will kill Rex for you, no, if you don't kill him, I was like, holy shit! Like, she just jumps in and shotguns him to the face if he tries to kill you, and you don't kill him or have the Renegade Persuade. Just little moments like that where I've just kept coming back to them because, and then there's a similar moment in Mass Effect 3 where you can also kill Rex, where I tried not killing him and C-Sec kills him. Mm-hmm. Just stuff like that where I'm like, holy crap, that's really huge, and I didn't know that was going to happen. I think a big part of it is I keep coming back to see what could be different about it. And then especially in Mass Effect 2 and 3, I think the gameplay is really fun. And so just trying out different classes, different weapon styles, play styles is pretty fun.
So do you think there's going to be a time when you sat down and you're like, man, I think I've done everything?
I think I'm getting close to doing everything, but it's weird that, like, I right now, like, honestly, I don't think I can see a time where I wouldn't want to play. Like, at this point, I just think, I just can't. I am getting pretty close to having seen everything. Like, there's really not that much novelty left anymore, but it's almost like you can cycle it. Like I actually just mentioned on the commentary retrospective that I uploaded yesterday for well, it won't be yesterday by the time this is out, but on the first mission of Mass Effect 1, there's that one moment where the one scientist assistant is kind of crazy and you can just punch him unconscious because he doesn't shut up.
Yeah.
Like, it's so ridiculous, but I hadn't done that in like a few playthroughs. And so even though I've seen it all, I haven't seen it all recently, right? So I can do certain things that I haven't done in a while. It's like I've romanced Tally once, but I haven't romanced Tally in a long time. So if I do another Tally romance, I still, and this is something that I talked about a while ago, I still have never done a dedicated Miranda romance all the way through the end of Mass Effect 3, and I'm going to do that this time. So
Jack will be proud.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Like his one video he had persuaded me to try it because I'd never done it.
I get that. Like for at least for Dragon Age, for me, it's pretty similar. I feel like now I'm doing playthroughs just to get like a line I have, like a one line I haven't gotten before.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the Winter Palace, if you have a Liliana that romanced a Kuslan that became king or queen during the Winter Palace, they'll say, "Oh, this is Liliana, the like lover of the king or queen," and that's just kind of funny that they would announce that. And I haven't gotten that before, so I'm currently trying to work out for that one line. I'm doing a whole playthrough for that one line. I mean, do you have any moments like that where like I'm literally just doing a playthrough to punch this one guy in the face or something?
I was gonna say that is totally normal, and so the one that it's actually not in Mass Effect per se, but I remember this specifically. I did a whole playthrough of Knights of the Old Republic 2, which technically I did a whole playthrough of Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Republic 2 because I felt obligated to do them together, just so I could get a very specific. Unlock a very specific area. There is one door. It's infuriating, and I did have to look it up because I could never figure out what it was that I had to do. There's one door in the Sith training grounds on Korriban in Knights of the Old Republic 2 that you cannot open unless Revan in Knights of the Old Republic 1 had a certain alignment and romanced Bastila and led her to have a dark side alignment also.
That is very specific.
Yeah, at least I think that was the setup. So that had to happen in Knights of the Old Republic 2. Also, you could open up one door to get into one room, and it's just like there's a holocron or like a datacron, and I think it plays a short video of Bastila. It's totally inconsequential. It's nothing like earth-shattering or revelatory. It's just one of those things that like only 1% of players ever do. And so I remember doing a whole playthrough just for that.
And you wouldn't be that 1%.
Yeah. I am the 1%.
Are there any choices in Mass Effect that feel very wrong? Like, at least in Dragon Age. Like, it always feels weird if you try to sell back Fenris to Daenerys. Even though this is a video game or whatever, you always feel a little bit bad. Is there anything like that in Mass Effect? Isn't
it weird that it feels bad to sell back? By the way, I've never done it. I've actually never done it because it does feel wrong. But I've given back Isabella, I don't know how many times. I've given Isabella to the Aeroshock 3-4 times, and it never feels wrong to do that, right?
Well, because she stole the book. Like, she did something. Like, it is illegal. So you kind of go like, whatever. But with Fenris, he's literally a prisoner. And, like, they tortured him and did all sorts of terrible things. And you're just like, yeah, whatever, bye. The worst is if you romance him and then his face just like...
Yeah, no, that's it. I think that is interesting though. That like for Isabella, I guess you just feel like she deserved it because she did kind of double cross you, and she's, I don't know. Mass Effect, yes. Killing Morden, for sure. And I've done it, but shooting him in the back, like you do literally, and it's set up so brilliantly, and of course Patrick Weeks, who's the writer for Morden, deserves so much credit for that sequence where. There's so much to say about that, and that's a great question because it's like there is a lot to say about that, but just to the way it's set up, where Morden specifically says like he turns around, and I don't know if he actually says it, but the implication is you were going to have to shoot me in the back. Like I'm not, I need to do this, and if you're going to kill me, then I guess you're going to kill me, but like you're going to kill me as I walk away to do this, and especially because I loved. Morden's mission in Mass Effect 2 with Malin and the data from the experiments that Malin was doing on the female Krogan and the conversations you get to have with Morden in Mass Effect 2 about how he regrets the genophage and the way that they did it, and like Morden shows true character progression in a monumental way. His life's work, so to speak, is now in question to him. And he's super smart, right? He's this hyper-intelligent character who's also pretty clear on his morals, but he is having a crisis, like almost an identity crisis, a crisis of faith, so to speak, in what he did and what his team did. And all of that culminates, right? That great moment when you're telling him, like, you're the guy who headed up the team that made the genophage, and he finally, like, loses his temper and says, I made a mistake, you know? And it's just like, it's so powerful. And then to shoot him in the back as he's, you know, still willing to sacrifice himself to correct his mistake. That is one where I've done it, but it's just like, holy crap. Like that one's a real gut punch. There's a tinge of guilt every time I've done it. I think I've only done it. No, I think I've done it twice. I think the second time I did it because, why did I do it the second time? I can't remember specifically, but I know I've done it twice.
Well, as a side note, what is with Patrick Wheat's writing characters who, like, has the name of Solus? Because Morton Solus, the elf, like, why the connection?
There's the story, right? Didn't he say, like, the people doing the language said that Solus meant pride?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he just saw that, and he didn't... I don't remember it exactly. He says either he didn't remember, he didn't realize, he just saw that meant pride, and he thought that fit Solus's character.
Oh, I didn't know they had the word before they had the name, if that makes sense. Anyway, back to stuff. What's your favorite character?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this, and literally I've been thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know. I can't pick.
Well, just like shoot a bunch at us.
Trainer.
Trainer.
No,
she's good.
That's like the easy one, right? Because she's just like her, and yeah. No, I would say overall Garrus, right? I mean that's like the most classic cliche answer. But Garrus is your bro. He's super useful if you level him up right in combat. I would say Garrus, Morden. People are going to give me such shit for this that I'm going to put him this high, but I've always really liked Caden.
See, I thought you were going to say Jacob and be like, yeah, we're going to give you shit. But I'm not going to give you shit for Caden.
I just like Caden because Caden almost seems like he shouldn't be there on account of how regular he is.
He is really normal.
I just love it because it's like he's almost like, to me, and I feel like Bioware characters are guilty sometimes of like, look at how unique and different they all are. And so, like, Blackwall, Caden, and, like, I love those characters, right? The guys who are basically just regular guys. Because I feel like they're almost, like, whatever. People can give me shit if they want. I almost feel like the normal, boring guys becoming underrepresented. And it's like, if you just put a small little twist on that, like Caden and his, you know, growing up kind of alone because of his biotics, or, of course, this, you know, Blackwall's backstory, like, those things are super interesting. But, yeah, I would put Caden in my pretty high up for me.
Okay. What about the worst character, though? And why is it Jacob?
No. I actually, you know what? I am ready to announce, and I've stuck up for him before in the past. I have tried to defend him as much as I can. Liam is the worst character in the history of Mass Effect.
All right. Why, like, I know you stuck up for him in the past, but what makes him the worst out of everybody?
You know, I'm still playing Andromeda intermittently. I beat my most recent playthrough, and I kind of saved all the side quests and loyalty missions for the end. And so I ignored Liam, as I mentioned in an earlier episode, completely. I've just not talked to him. I haven't brought him on any missions, and they do the Suvi does the thing where, like, Liam wants to talk to you, and I'm like, I'm so tired of hearing her say that. So finally I go and talk to Liam, and his conversations are just so bad. Like, the way he's written, like, he's not talking about anything. Like, he doesn't make any sense. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny or it's supposed to be part of his character, but, like, he's talking about how he's frustrated that no one in the initiative is working with the Angara enough, and, like, this and that, and he doesn't have a shirt on, and he's doing push-ups, and he has shitty form on his push-ups. Like, whoever animated this, it's like they've never done a push-up in their life. They've never watched a person do a push-up. Like, if you go to YouTube and just type in push-up form, push-up how-to, it would have taken you 5 minutes to know what a push-up looks like. It's almost like he's doing a plank. Like, his butt is raised up in the air, where it's almost like he's doing a plank. Not a plank, I'm sorry, a shoulder pike. And I'm just like, did the person who animated this not know what a push-up is?
Well, they probably, what's the word? Not rotoscoped it, but the...
motion captured?
Motion capture, there you go. And that's the guy they hired to do it was like, do a push-up. He's like, I don't fucking know what to do.
The guy who mocapped it has never done a push-up in his life.
Yeah.
And it's just so weird. I'm like, why doesn't he have a shirt on? And why is he doing push-ups? And why won't he look at me? And what is he talking about? He talks about one thing and then he jumps to another topic. I go, this character fucking sucks, man. Like, I've tried to give Liam every benefit of the doubt, and he has one or two endearing moments. But for the most part, he's just like, we got to have a soccer match and shit. I'm like, bro, like, what are you talking about? How do you even count as an adult? Like, dude,
we have a man-child on board. Yes! That's why it's upsetting.
He's in violation of the age limit for the initiative. Like, how is this possible?
Wouldn't have that been a great twist, though? You find out he's like 17.
Yes, he acts like a 17-year-old. Actually, you know what? That's an insult to 17-year-olds, because there's some pretty bright, on-it 17-year-olds.
I don't know. I've met some pretty shitty 20-year-olds, too.
Well,
so maybe
he is that. So, yeah, Liam, he's the worst character. Like, he really is.
Now, this is just off topic now, but I really do not like PB. So why is PB better than Liam? To you?
Sometimes I think she's funny. Like, I like the fact, I like her nomad conversations with Cora, because they're so opposite from each other. I just think it's funny, right? Like, Cora seems the most uptight when she's next to PB, right? They kind of contrast against each other. So I get a kick out of, especially if you flirt with PB, but you're romancing Cora. Those are the best. So I quite like PB, at least for that reason.
Okay, so I don't think I've ever taken PB out other than her character mission, so maybe that's my problem. Anyway, so out of the trilogy, I'm going to exclude Andromeda from this, but what is the worst game? Because, like, Dragon Age has a notable dip in 2, so does Mass Effect have that? Is it pretty equal?
You bastard. No, there's no way I can do that. There's just... I was just thinking about Mass Effect 1, because I was doing the commentary on it, and, I mean, Mass Effect 1 is the least technically impressive, right? It has the worst combat. It probably has the worst pacing issues because of the second act kind of open world aspect to it, but aesthetically I really like it. I feel like it's a little more muted as far as the art design, which I actually like. It sets up everything. In many ways, Mass Effect 1 is my favorite. Even if I know it's not objectively the best, I think Mass Effect 2 is objectively the best. And Mass Effect 3 takes a lot of shit because of the ending, but especially with mods, or even if not, even just not with mods, even just with the extended cut, I find the ending to be pretty forgivable at this point. Yeah, I can't answer. I refuse. There is no worse. They're all amazing.
Okay, well, let's talk about the ending then. Now, you lived through the drama of the ending. Can you tell me how that went for you? Like, were you angry about it? Were you willing? Did you even play it that early to?
Oh yeah, no, I was one of the first. So yeah, Mass Effect 3 ending. This might be another long answer. I took vacation to play Mass Effect 3, right? So I took a week off of work to play Mass Effect 3. That's how hyped and in love with it I was. I beat the game in about 4 days or so. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I remember that whole final conversation. I mean, everything, you felt it, right? I mean, everybody knows this already, right from the beam run. As soon as you get up into the Citadel, something feels off. Even the first time I played it, I didn't notice it as much. I think I was trying to ignore it. Something felt wrong about that section. It felt rushed. It felt incomplete. I kept thinking, okay, when am I going to see... I don't know what I'm really supposed to be seeing. By the time I got through with the Star Child conversation and everything, I just didn't know what to do. I think I actually picked the Control ending initially just because it looked blue, and I was trying to play Paragon, and I was kind of confused by that. But then when I actually thought about what the Control ending was, like when I saw the cutscene after picking it, it turned Shepard into some kind of Reaper god, and I'm like, no, that's horrible. I have to reload and pick something else. But before reloading, I'm like, let me just go onto the forums. And that's when we still had the official Bioware forums, the old BSN. And I went on there to see what other people were picking, and then I just saw the Armageddon, and then just started seeing people freaking out, and I kind of got a little caught up in it, because once I started to read what other people were saying about it, I'm like, yeah, that's correct. Like, all these options are basically the same. They're destroying all of our choices. Fuck this stupid hologram Star Child kid. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, like, I was one of the people who had, you know, I can't remember what the hashtags were, like, in my signature of the Bioware forums, and like I was irate. I was so mad for a few days, and then, you know, the extended cut came out. I thought that was better. Over weeks and months, I kind of started to calm down. I wrote some articles about it, one of which was on Kotaku. It was one of the few times that I've been on Kotaku, and yeah, so I kind of got more and more perspective the longer I got away from it, and now I play it and I can actually kind of appreciate it.
So that kind of segues into kind of the next section I want to talk about. I know that you've talked about you've done a lot of like journalism and writing for other sites and even podcasting. So can you give me like a brief history of that?
Ooh, brief history.
Or a long history. We got like 30 more minutes, so you can do what you want. This is your time.
Brief history is I was a sports writer, so I was a blogger writing mainly about the NBA, and then I was becoming more and more of a gamer, and so I wanted to get into that, and so I specifically went looking for websites that wanted someone to review sports games, and I actually found that, and so then I started reviewing sports video games, and then I got to do that editor let me do some regular video game reviews, and so then I started to build a little cred doing that, wrote for some smaller sites, wrote a blog, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that's the short version of it. Yeah, I guess the longer version of it was like, I mean, I started when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15. And when I was writing for sports sites, I'm convinced they literally didn't know how young I was. I was getting paid like what would have been beer money if I was old enough to drink, but you know, still like actually getting paid gigs at a 15-year-old as a writer was a big boost to my confidence. And I think that looking back, honestly, that really did something for me that I appreciate now in a hyper scrutinized social media world, and even doing something like this where I don't feel pressure, sort of knowing that people will scrutinize what I've said. You know, I made mistakes and I wrote dumb stuff, you know, at that age, and was boisterous, and my writing style was really kind of in your face and obnoxious when I look back at it. And you know, and I looked stupid at certain points in time, and the readers had to correct me when I was wrong. And I realized, be more careful, but also like, you'll live through it. It's fine. Like, get your opinions out there, and if you need to correct yourself, but it'll be fine. And also, I don't honestly think I have a need to be heard. Like, I've kind of had that already. Like, I was really, really fortunate when I think back to it. Like, at one point, the site that I was writing for, I got to do a weekly column, and that site was doing, you know, like, unique visitors in the hundreds of thousands. And it's like, that was a really big stage to have at like 16, 17, and getting like hundreds of comments on, you know, 1,500 word essays that I was doing weekly. Like, that gave me a lot of feedback, and it kind of, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people are all sort of searching for whatever it is. They want something to go viral. They want to get attention, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I've kind of I've had a little bit of that. It's fine. I just kind of want to hopefully say something worthwhile. Video games I pursued totally just because like I was playing them anyway, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could be a games writer? Wouldn't it be cool if I could be a games writer? And I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy doing reviews. I really didn't. It was like one of those. It was like one of those things where like young me was like, yeah, video game reviewer, that would be the greatest thing ever. Until you're like reviewing games you don't really care about, and it's starting to feel like an obligation to have to play them. And then like there's not a lot to say about them, but you're trying to hit at least 1,000 words, and then you've got a deadline on it, and it kind of sucked the fun out of it. And then as well, at that time, for a day job, I was the manager of a GameStop. So I was just like, I was playing everything, and I felt obligated to play everything. And I was honestly starting to like not like video games for a point there. Where I really felt like I was being most rewarded was when I eventually started my own blog, which was like, you know, it never got big, but I could write whatever I wanted. And I was making no money from it because I never put ads or anything like that. I make zero money from it, but I could write whatever I want. And that was probably somewhere in 2010, 2011. That's right when I feel like what's called new games journalism, which is a term that, as far as I know, was coined by Kieran Gillen, who's now a comic book writer for Marvel. But when he was at Rock Paper Shotgun, he wrote an essay called New Games Journalism. It's basically just piggybacking off of the new journalism moniker. It's basically just writing about games in a super personal way and in a super introspective way, and sort of weaving in cultural issues and commentary to discussions about games. Mm-hmm. I started blogging in that style right when I feel like that style was blowing up and getting huge. And I wrote a post about Splinter Cell, the Splinter Cell series, and its implications in a post 9/11 world, and sort of the effect on culture that it was having, as it was essentially popularizing international military excursions and espionage, and sort of making that cool amongst my generation. And that post got some notoriety and got passed around a few places, and people quite seemed to like it. And so mm-hmm. I kept writing sort of introspective style stuff like that until I felt like that scene, so to speak, just got so saturated, and people were reaching, and I was reaching. And I was writing things where I was trying really hard to like make a puzzle game seem deep and and like the deeper meaning of this puzzle game. And I was just like, okay, I'm reaching, and I'm starting to become a parody of myself. And I basically just stopped. Like, I just cold stopped.
Do you ever miss it?
No, not really. I like a lot of the articles. I really like that Splinter Cell article. I really like an article that I wrote about Ghost Recon, where I looked at there was a character creator in Ghost Recon, and the character creator options were so limited, but they had this new feature called Gunsmith, where you could edit your gun, and it was hundreds upon hundreds of customization options for your gun, and you could choose like 6 options for your face. And I talked about like the implications of like, fetishizing gun ownership. It wasn't like anti-Second Amendment or anything like that. It was just like, there are so many options. You basically are your gun, right? Your personification in this game is being your gun. I like that article. I liked an article that I wrote about Dishonored. I really liked an article that I wrote about self-deception and the way that plays large in the Elder Scrolls series. Like, there are certain articles I can look back on and go, I would improve the method of the writing. Like, they don't seem... the prose isn't very sharp, but I like the content that I put. I would stand by those even today, most of them, or most of it. So I feel like I said what I wanted to say. And now I basically write for YouTube videos, essentially, because a lot of my videos now are written out. And so if I really want to say something, I find the format that I'm doing it now to be preferable, quite honestly.
I was about to ask, how did you transition into YouTube from that background? What kind of was the trigger to start the Exalted March channel?
So that's a really interesting point, right? Like, there was no transition between blogging and YouTube, which is really, really interesting. Like, I literally just stopped blogging, like almost at the height of it. Like when I mentioned that Mass Effect 3 article that made it onto Kotaku, like for a few days, it was the front page story on Kotaku, just based on like whatever their little ranking algorithm was with views and comments. And not long after that, I was like, all right, I'm done. I don't really have any more to say in this space. And I did not think about covering games. I mean, Jesus Christ, I've only been doing the Exalted March for like a year, so it was probably like 4 or 5 years. Like, I was sure I was never going to blog or never do any sort of video game related coverage ever again. So there was a YouTube channel called 1791L, which is sort of like, they have nothing to do with games. They're a political channel, but the aesthetic of that YouTube channel I really, really liked. Like, the guy who does the editing is incredibly talented. It's almost similar to like some of the like Vox style videos. They're like 7-8 minutes long, and they just kind of take apart an issue, and like visually they're very interesting, and the rhetoric and the arguments are very persuasive. So that just kind of made me interested in doing videos of that style, but I didn't want to do it politically. And I thought, well, the thing that I might have something to say about is either sports or gaming, and I haven't been following professional sports like the NBA as closely in the past few years. And so I thought, maybe I could do a channel sort of somewhat in that style about games. The interesting thing about that is my channel doesn't really take any inspiration from say that channel anymore, because I'm just not, that style is contingent upon being very talented as a video editor, which I'm not. And so it was interesting, right? Like I was trying in really crude ways to sort of mimic elements of that. And then once I realized that I couldn't, I'm like, well, what can I do, essentially? It's like, well, I can sort of write, I can sort of talk a little bit, and I can make clear, concise points. And essentially what I am is I'm an analyst, right? I can analyze business a little bit. I can kind of deconstruct and give criticism of art, writing, fictional tropes, cinematic aesthetics. Like I can talk about these things fairly well, and I think I can talk about them in a way where most people will go, huh, I never thought of it that way. And I thought, okay, can I just do that? Can I just talk about video games in a way that makes people go, huh, that's really true, but I never thought of that. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. So yeah, that was basically all I was trying to do, right? Like in the sea of content that is on YouTube, much of which is very good, some of which is pretty terrible. I just wanted to make something. I just wanted to talk about games in a way that makes someone kind of realize, oh yeah, that is kind of true, and I've never thought of that. So yeah, that's basically just what I was setting out to do.
So yeah, how do you think, you say it's been a year since you started the channel. How do you think things have been going?
They've been going okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty honest relationship with myself as far as I don't think I'm too hard on myself, but I'm definitely not like thrilled with myself either. I generally tend to finish almost every video and go, it wasn't exactly what I had in my head, but it's close enough and it's pretty good. That's generally how I feel about most of my videos. I really don't get done with most of them and go like, yeah, this is excellent. Like this is really awesome. I kind of get done with them and go, it's good enough to put out. And part of the reason why the product is not exactly where I want it to be is because I just, I don't put out content the way you put out content. Like you put stuff out regularly. And because you're doing that, like it's visible and you can see how your iteration process has caused your product to grow, which it was very good to begin with. But practice makes perfect, right? It's like that. It's the most cliche thing ever, but it's totally true. And I can definitely see the improvement in my videos. Like I can definitely see the improvement. And sometimes I do think if I was consistently putting out one video a week, how much further along would I be right now? And so, yeah, I think I'm improving. That's always the direction you want to see it go, is each video gets hopefully a little bit better. But it took me, I still feel like my style is actually not really nailed down. Like if you go and look at all of my videos that are not like a Let's Play or a podcast, you can see the style kind of jump around in haphazard, irregular ways. Like one video I'll use one, there'll be some visual element in there that I have, and then it's never been in a video since, and it never occurs in a video again, or some way that I have it cut together. It's not until really recently with some of the Skyrim videos where there's starting to be a little bit of consistency to the actual style of the editing. So I'm finding myself, I'm finding my aesthetic, I'm finding how I want the videos to look and sound and the format and the structure, and it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, I was about to ask, because I like you said, I feel like your videos really, really vary a lot, and not only in editing style, but sometimes it's like it's been a while since Jordan's posted anything.
Yeah, there's that too.
So how do you get your video ideas? Because like mine's pretty easy. Oh, what do I want to talk about today? Throw a dart at the wall. Oh, I'll talk about spirits or some shit like that. You have a much more in-depth thought process, and I imagine that's a lot harder.
Yes and no. Sometimes the videos stay in my head for a while, and that's a good thing. Like they kind of have to percolate there for some time before I have enough, I don't know, juice to kind of write out what they are. But as far as getting the ideas now, they just kind of float in and out. Something while I'm playing a video game, something will occur to me, and I'll go, huh, that's interesting. Maybe there's something there. And then so I'll think about it for a few days, and then I'll go, yeah, either this is a good idea for a video or it's not. And then once I decide this is a good idea for a video, I don't go and start writing it and making it. I just kind of let it sit there. And if I continue to think about it for the next couple of weeks, then I might sit down and finally write it, which is why I don't come out with videos frequently.
So take me through the process. Like, you just got an idea. How long does it take until the video is uploaded?
Ooh. Could be anywhere from 2 weeks, could be anywhere from a month, because like sometimes I literally just think about it on and off, and I don't really rush that process. I am not, and this is one of those things I consider, right? Which is just like, the channel has grown, right? If I look at my analytics, there is a rate of growth that is increasing. Maybe I should take this a little more seriously and put in a process where I commit to a video every week, and then I would sit down at a certain time and try and parse through it instead of sort of taking it as it comes. But process wise, yeah, I don't have a set structure for thinking about it in a set way. If I'm thinking about it a lot throughout my day, eventually I just go, okay, I need to sit down and write this out. Once I sit down, I literally just, I sit down and I start writing out the copy, and I normally record it right after I'm done writing it. And then if I need to, put together some video for it, I try and do it that day or the next day. And then I upload it.
Okay. Now, do you have a favorite video that you've done?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think at this point it would have to be the one about the future of Mass Effect. Which, I need to narrow that down. Because I've done multiple ones. The one that says the 4 factors that will decide the future of Mass Effect.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Why that one over the others?
Yeah, I like that one because I feel like it's concise, it's clear, it's to the point. I think it's correct. Like I really, really believe that those are the elements that are going to chiefly define what's going to happen with Mass Effect. And as I say right at the beginning of that video, there are so many videos. Talking about the future of Mass Effect and what's going to happen with the franchise. And this, there's no way around it. This sounds incredibly arrogant. I really feel like mine is the best one. Like I really, and I've watched a lot of them, and some of them are quite good. And again, some of them are they're garbage. But some of them are really quite good. But I really feel like that's a 9-minute video that I made that lays out, business, it lays out branding, it lays out sort of like what Bioware's pipeline is, it lays out, expectations. I do it quickly, I do it concisely, and if I was just a viewer, I would watch that video and go, oh yeah, this makes sense, and this guy brought up some points that maybe I wasn't thinking of clearly enough. That is, and like, the read is good, the editing's decent, it does the job. That is sort of like I'm actually looking at that as like a blueprint of what I would like, the channel to be. So I would say definitely from the business analysis standpoint, that one, and then maybe from the art deconstruction standpoint, maybe one of the 2 Skyrim videos that I've done. Or also the one relay video where I break down the scene with Liam and Ryder in the med bay. I also kind of like that one from an art deconstruction standpoint.
What about least favorite? Is there ones that you sat there looking at it going, maybe I should delete it and no one will notice and my life will be for the better?
The only one that I consider deleting, honestly, and I'm going to say it, everybody's going to go out and watch it. It's not that it's bad. There's the one video, have Bioware fans outgrown Bioware? That was the one video that was my attempt, like sort of like my best attempt at a particular style that I'm just not cut out for. Like there's just a lot more going on graphically in the video. I can't do that. Like I don't have the skills in video editing to do that. That video took me so damn long to put together, and it's not even that good. Like and so I look at that video and I go, it's not a terrible attempt. It just doesn't really feel like me. It's sort of me, like it's kind of my voice and my writing style, but it's a style of video and it's put together in a way that like it's really good for somebody else. And you can tell, like if you really pay attention to it, you can tell it's me trying to do somebody else's aesthetic and somebody else's style. And so for that reason, it kind of annoys me. It's not that the quality is all that bad. It's actually fairly decent, I guess, but it's definitely me trying to do someone else's style.
Who was that style?
That's the 1791.
Okay.
It was like me sort of leading up to wanting to do what that channel does. And by the way, I make a complete mockery of myself by even admitting that video is my attempt at mimicking what that other channel does. Because if you watch anything from that channel and then you watch my supposed best attempt, you can understand why I gave up on that style, right? Because I don't even come close. I don't even come close.
So something that you asked me that I want to ask you. Does anyone in your, like, the real world, the world of the living,
Yeah.
know what you do?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, my friends, almost all my friends know, right? A handful of my friends know. They watch the videos. You know, they've commented on some of them, and normally they text me or something and say, "Hey, great job." You know, this. One of my best friends was telling me how he could see the improvement and how he could feel that every video was getting better, and like that feels really cool. Yeah, I mean, some friends that I have even at work. It's not too many people in my job. I think it's really only maybe like one person who knows. But yeah, people are really supportive, and you know, I think I mentioned my first somewhat significant number of subscribers came when I posted on a Reddit thread that was totally unrelated to anything gaming. I posted a comment on the what's it called? Get Motivated. It's like a super huge sub on Reddit. And I don't even remember what the comment was. I don't even remember what the post was. Obviously, Get Motivated is all about motivation. And I just said, yeah, I needed to hear this. I started a YouTube channel, but it feels like there's so many YouTubers out there. Like, what am I even doing? And the post was something related to, you know, you can't compare yourself to others. Just get out there and do it. And so that's it. I posted that comment, and somebody said, "Hey, well, you know, post a link, man. Like, I'll subscribe to your channel." And at that point, it was just my friends. Like, I had like 6 people subscribed to the channel. Aww. And I think I only posted maybe the first video or maybe 2 videos. And I wasn't trying to advertise it, right? Like, I think you mentioned as well. Like, I wasn't posting my videos on Reddit or anywhere else. Like, I don't know what I was doing. But somebody was like, yeah, like, you should, I'll subscribe to your YouTube channel, post it. And so then I did. And then like, I got like 55, 56 subscribers in that one day. And when you go from like 6 to 50, like, you feel like, I was like, oh,
yeah, what just happened?
This is amazing. Like, actual people, like, at that point, if it had stopped at 50, I'd have been happy with 50 people. You know what I mean? Like, those 50 people will watch my videos and I would have been ecstatic.
You know, it's weird. Yeah, that first like 50 to 100 people, that's way more exciting than getting to like 16,000, you know? Like,
and it's weird too, right? Like, because you see those notifications come up all the time, and I do try to remind myself every time I see like, oh yeah, notification, like 4 new people, 5 new people, like, hey man, appreciate that. Like, I don't click the subscribe button all that often on people. Do you know what I mean? On YouTube, it's like,
oh yeah, there's other people I follow, but I'm not subscribed to them.
Yeah, like
I don't know why.
But when I click the subscribe button, at least me personally, it's because I really liked that content. So it's like, like, I really try to appreciate it every time I see people subbing to the channel. Like, that means presumably, you know, they really like the content.
So are there any future plans for the Exalted March?
I just want to get the style consistent, and I think I'm getting close to that. I just want to get the style consistent. I want to tell the truth. I want to be as accurate as I possibly can. I think video games are super interesting, and I think that there is still, despite everything being said, despite the massive amounts of things that are being written, I still feel as though there are things to be said that maybe aren't being said as much, or they're not being said as clearly. And, you know, I run the incredible risk of being arrogant, but hopefully if I'm doing this, it's because I think that I can add to that conversation in a way that, you know, no one else can in exactly the way that I would, right? So hopefully I have something to say, but it's a constant exploration of that. Like, I'm constantly wavering between, I think I might have something useful to say about video games, and I'm a complete idiot and I don't know anything. And I'm speaking in cliches, and somebody else probably already said this and said it better than me, so I should probably just shut up. So like, I'm wavering back and forth between that constantly, but I think that's kind of good. It makes me search very hard for the product, and so that when I post something, you know, it's probably overcome 2 or 3 rounds of, maybe I should even post this because it's not even worth posting. But anyway, yeah, that's just it. I just want to get clearer and clearer with my statements, and hopefully more useful with what I'm saying. And then the video editing style, I would like to be more consistent. And in order to do that effectively, I will probably have to get better about posting more frequently. But, you know, we'll see how that goes. No promises.
So that's all the questions I had. Is there anything that you want to say, or a question I didn't ask that you wish I did, that you had prepared, like, for the couple of weeks in between my recording and this, that you really wanted me to ask and have mentally prepared for, but I didn't end up asking it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I do now. I will say now, having done this, I understand more of your not trepidation,
hesitation.
Yeah, and doing the interview because I thought this was going to be. I don't like it. Let's never do this again.
Because you feel like an asshole talking for like a whole hour.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And this is like, you know what, Caitie? I feel like this is a real breakthrough moment for me. I've never, because you know what? Generally, I think in the past, I've really enjoyed talking about myself. I've never disliked talking about myself this much ever. I think I honestly felt like a total asshole this entire time. And I'm like, how much do I talk about my history as a writer? Like, at what point do I start sounding braggy? Like, maybe I should just give a really short version of this. I don't know. And then I'm like, God, no wonder she didn't want to talk about this.
Well, now we have to post this with the section on it.
This is, of course. Like, this has to go in.
Then wait till it comes out and you're like, everyone's going to hate this episode because no one fucking cares. Like, who wants to hear me talk? And then, like, everyone likes it. And you're like, oh, I guess everyone wants to hear me talk. And that's what the whole point of YouTube is.
It's so weird. Like, now that I'm doing it, I'm just like, man, I don't have anything interesting to say about anything. And I'm not interesting. And no one's going to like this. It's exactly that. But
it's all your fears brought to life in an hour.
You know what? This was basically a therapy session is what it was.
And yeah, maybe because I do therapy, I knew of like, talking about for myself for an hour. I know what that's like. Don't want to do that. But all the time, it is so hard to like I'll ask someone a question, like a very personal, deep question. Of course, it's very uncomfortable. And then they'll ask me that. I'm like, no. This is not what we're here about. You don't get to know my personal history. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, and like honestly, now that I'm thinking about it too, and I think the reason why I suggested it is I like doing interviews. To kind of talk about that as well, like I got to do some interviewing while I was a blogger, and I got to interview mainly like indie developers, and I liked interviewing indie developers because you could give someone who maybe wasn't getting as much play a little bit of a platform. Mm-hmm. I really like, and I like watching interviews a lot, and I like interviewing is sort of like I'm a big fan of Larry King, like Larry King is old now, young Larry King, Larry King, like in the 90s.
I was going to say 1940s, but go on.
Younger Larry King. I really feel like he was one of the greatest is one of the greatest interviewers of all time. And I feel like there's something really interesting about a really well done interview. So I actually really enjoyed interviewing you last time, and I enjoyed editing it. And like I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I don't have to talk as much. So I think the reason why I suggested it was basically I like doing the interview, but I didn't think about me being the one being interviewed.
Well, maybe next time when you start getting the interview itch, we just find someone else to interview.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll just find somebody to interview for the podcast.
So if you would like to be interviewed, contact us at splittheveil@gmail.com. Don't actually do that. I don't think anyone checks that email anymore. But...
Oh, that's true. I don't think I've checked it in forever.
Yeah, that's a real email. I should have that like at least pushed to my phone or something, because otherwise I'm never gonna remember that exists. But
all the dick pics are in that one.
Oh, what if?
Oh God! Well, now we definitely can't look at it.
What, we burn and salt the email. It's just gone now. Don't worry about it. Never mind. All right. Well, where can people find you if they're interested in your content, which they should be?
They can find me at The Exalted March on YouTube, at The Exalted March on Instagram and on Twitter.
At The Exalted March.
Yes, all across the board, The Exalted March. And where can folks find you?
You can find me on YouTube as Ghildirthalen, on Twitter as Ghildirthalen, and Reddit as Gillanon. And I think with that, guys, the nightmare of interviews is over, and we'll go back to our regular scheduled content very briefly. Durha Sherrill.